At the beginning, we meet Eddie Barish, who is paying off part of what he owes to a mechanic until he receives a call from his daughter Sarah, but he prefers not to answer. He goes back to talking to the man and asks for a discount on the amount, as he cannot afford the high price of the part for his vehicle, which he needs to work and earn more money. The mechanic, being unsympathetic, responds that if Eddie wants the van ready, he must settle his debt first. He then tells him to leave his establishment. Eddie answers the call, and Amy confronts him for not picking up Sarah at the agreed time. She says she does not like Sarah coming home alone, and if they are trying to work things out between them, this kind of mistake cannot happen. After she ends the call, Eddie sees a wallet with money carelessly lying on a table. He creates a situation to get closer to the accessory and almost gets into a fight, but however, he manages to grab the amount of money. He does not have a steady job and struggles to get any money borrowed. So the easiest thing he finds is to buy scratch-off tickets and also look for something that he can steal. He tries to find an open vehicle to take something for himself, but things are not easy. While walking the streets, he receives a call. This time it is his daughter Sarah, who says she is upset because her dad did not pick her up from school and she had to wait 2 hours to be released. Eddie apologizes, saying he had to take care of some things. Little Sarah says she loves him. Eddie reciprocates the affection, saying the same, but has to hang up as he is going to work. We see that in fact, he saw a unique opportunity to get ahead. He finds a luxury vehicle in a parking lot and approaches it to see if he can find a chance to steal it. To his luck, the car is open, and without thinking twice, he gets in and closes the door. Eddie looks for the car keys, but after searching all compartments, he cannot find them. Realizing he wouldn't be able to steal the car, he decides to leave, but soon discovers that he is trapped inside. Eddie hides so as not to be seen by people around the car, and as soon as he is alone, he starts trying to break the windows. Unfortunately for him, the car is armored, and you cannot break the window just by kicking it. He becomes desperate and kicks harder. However, he does not know that outside, anyone nearby does not hear any sound coming from inside. Suddenly, the car receives a call from an unknown number, identified only as "Answer me," but Eddie ignores it. He searches for a way to get out, but does not suspect that someone is watching him through hidden cameras inside the car. He finds a metal tool and attempts to break the glass desperately, but this attempt doesn't even manage to scratch the armored window. Again, the call from the unknown echoes in the car, but the thief does not answer and keeps trying to escape from the vehicle by breaking the door, but he ends up hurting himself in the process. Eddie tries to make a call from his cell phone, but he can't, as apparently the car has a signal blocker. Once again, the unknown caller rings, and already tired of trying and with no other escape options, Eddie answers the call. The man introduces himself as William and the legitimate owner of the vehicle. Eddie is not interested in knowing who the man is and curses at him. By doing so, he is electrocuted, as the leather seats have a system that sends an electrical current if activated, and William has the power to do that. Eddie asks to get out of the car, but the man refuses, saying he needs to talk to him. William claims that his car is a special armored vehicle, and there is not a chance Eddie can get out without his permission. Eddie becomes worried about his situation and continues asking to get out, but William says he just wants to talk and understand the young man's life, who likes to cause trouble. Eddie is not very interested in this proposal and pulls a gun from his backpack and shoots at the window, but it seems he didn't hear about the armor. The bullet simply ricochets and hits his leg. Outside, a woman walks by the luxury vehicle and stops when Eddie asks for help. But she just uses the car mirror to touch up her makeup and cannot see Eddie's agony inside the vehicle. The situation leaves Eddie even more worried, as he now knows that nobody outside the car hears his screams and knocks on the glass. After the woman leaves, in desperation and bleeding, Eddie asks William to call an ambulance because he needs a doctor. The man says he is one and can help. Eddie states he doesn't care what he is, he just wants to get out of there, and adds that William can call the police if he wants. In pain and losing blood, Eddie keeps asking to be freed. William says he will not allow it, as Eddie is a thief and just had the bad luck of stealing his car, where he had already set up a trap for some criminal. Eddie asks what William wants, and the man asks him to listen attentively. William says he wants Eddie to truly repent for the mistake he made. Eddie then regrets what he did, and then William starts telling about himself. However, after losing some blood and already feeling weak, Eddie begins to lose consciousness. He asks for water, But William says that in the situation he is in, Eddie can hold out 48 hours without drinking. After hearing this, Eddie faints. When he wakes up, it is already night, and he realizes he was aided while unconscious and had his wounds treated, but he is still trapped there. At dawn, William calls again so they can have a conversation. When the man talks about his family, Eddie says he does not want to know about the man's life, and at that moment he curses him again and says he just wants water and food. William says he does not like vulgar language and then corrects him with new shock sessions. After that, he turns on the radio with an irritating song and sets the air conditioning to the coldest. At first, Eddie can endure it, but after a few hours, he begins to go crazy with the music. William continues watching him through the internal cameras of the vehicle and sees the man's despair. At nightfall, Eddie is now very cold and can no longer stand it. William then calls again, and upon hearing Eddie apologize for his rudeness earlier, the man turns off the cold air. The next day arrives, and Eddie has to relieve himself right there inside the car, and when he is bored, he continues trying to find a gap in the vehicle's structure. Later, William calls, and upon saying Eddie looks finished down there, he implies that he is watching Eddie. Eddie discreetly looks and notices that there is a man on one of the balconies, high on a neighboring building on the phone, looking in the direction of the car. As he talks to him, Eddie tries to cover the camera's view with a gum, but before that, William corrects him with a shock. Eddie questions what William would do if he died, as getting rid of a dead person would not be easy. William, reflecting on society's indifference towards crime and criminals, asserts that Eddie's absence would not be a problem because, deep down, no one would miss him. Feeling that his end is near, Eddie asks the man to be more generous with him, and saying this, William mentions that he has cancer and also does not have much time to live. He is doing this to seek justice, as the country does not punish criminals like Eddie as they should be punished, and in the end, they just set them free. Speaking of justice and sentences given to criminals, and some as a condition and exchange for their freedom, William offers an option. He wants to cut off 4 fingers from Eddie's hand. Eddie disapproves of this action as it is not proper justice. Continuing the conversation, Eddie talks about the inequality present in the society they live in, and that the laws always favor richer people, just like William, while the poor classes live with little, seeking ways to survive, as even buying basics like food and medicine is complicated. William defends himself, claiming he earned everything through his own efforts and started from scratch, like many others. As a moral lesson, he quotes the saying and commandment, "Thou shalt not steal," then hangs up the call and turns the irritating music back on. Another day ends in the oppressed city, and now the hot air invades the car, forcing Eddie to wear almost no clothes. He undergoes the psychological torture of seeing the rain through the car's sunroof and can't even feel a drop of water. With no choice and feeling very thirsty, he considers drinking his own urine but lacks the courage. William calls again, and when asked why he doesn't end the punishment, he reveals that he has spent a lot of time and money on the project, so he wants to enjoy his invention with the time he has left. The conversation continues, and William asks for Eddie's social number to know about his criminal record, and if he provides the information, William promises him some water. Eddie gives the man what he asked for, and then the hot air is turned off, and he is told where a bottle of water is located. Eddie refreshes himself and feels relieved. Later, remembering the tickets he bought, Eddie realizes he forgot to scratch the last blocks. When he scratches, he discovers he has won $500, an amount that would greatly help him to recover his van. Unfortunately, Eddie realizes too late that if he had seen it earlier, he could be at home and not going through this agonizing situation. William understands the situation, but will not undo what has started, and says that the consequences of an act always come. Once again, Eddie apologizes for breaking into William's car and asks for food, as his hunger has grown significant. William is unmoved by the apology, but wanting Eddie to last longer there, he opens the glove compartment for Eddie to get a cookie. When Eddie grabs the food, he sees some kind of device at the bottom of the glove compartment, but he cannot observe for long as the compartment closes. Suddenly, William receives another call, and Eddie overhears something about one of his patients. William says he has to hang up, and at the same time, Eddie sees the man from the balcony leaving. Seeing the opportunity, Eddie opens the glove compartment. He finds the device, which could be responsible for the vehicle's power. When he tries to bring his hand to the button, he is electrocuted. William, not seeing what he was doing, just tells Eddie to keep his hands where he can see them. Another day passes, and Eddie discreetly tries to press the button with his feet, but is unsuccessful. Sometime later, outside the rain does not relent, and meanwhile, Eddie struggles with the desire to drink, having only a bottle with his urine. Summoning his courage, he decides to drink it, and thus quench his thirst. At night, the bored Eddie keeps pressing the button to start the vehicle, and unexpectedly, the car starts. Quickly, he begins to drive happily, but the joy ends just a few meters ahead. The car automatically shuts off, and William calls him. The man laughs at Eddie's naivety, then turns on the cruise control and drives the car recklessly and quickly through the city. This frightens Eddie, but William takes him to an alley where two men are beating another man. He says that society does not care about them, then runs over one of them and chases the other until pinning him against a steel gate. Eddie screams for the man to stop, but William asks why he should stop, if people like Eddie do not follow the rules. Eddie admits he understands he broke the rules of society, and then William pulls the car back from the man. He says if such a criminal can get up, he will free Eddie. The man is writhing in pain and manages to sit up, but William revs the car and mercilessly crushes him. The scene leaves Eddie tormented, and to make matters worse, William drives dangerously down the streets again and takes him to the rooftop parking lot of a tall building where he keeps circling to further terrify the man. Finally, he speeds toward the edge of the rooftop, but stops before the car falls. Eddie faints from hitting his head, and when he wakes up, it is morning and William is still driving. He tells that he has news about Amy and Sarah and says he went to their apartment, which worries Eddie. William confronts him, asking if he loves them since he is irresponsible and owes 2 years of child support for them. Thus, the government has registered him as an unfit father to be a family head. Then, William takes him to Sarah's school to see that the little girl is coming home alone. Suspecting that William is a psychopath, Eddie asks the man to stop following his daughter, but William accelerates the car and nearly runs over Sarah. He does not stop and continues pursuing the little girl. Eddie confesses his mistakes and says he will do anything. William says there is only one thing to do for Eddie to save his daughter. Seeing that the car is heading toward his daughter, who just fell, he takes the gun and shoots himself, freeing Sarah from death. Fortunately, William had emptied the magazine, and thus Eddie only displayed the peak of his madness. At night, while William talks more about the society they live in, Eddie declares he has had enough. He bites the bottle and begins breaking all the internal cameras, even taking shocks. Moments later, Eddie sees pictures of his life with his daughter, then leaves a voice message saying he loves her and apologizes for not being a good father. Suddenly, the car stops in a parking lot where there is a vehicle next to it waiting. Eddie watches the movement, and then a man gets out and approaches the luxury car. The man lowers the window and says he is William. Eddie goes berserk and tries to attack him, but gets shocked again. The man tosses restraints and asks Eddie to tie his wrists to the lower part of the seat. He then leaves a bag with tools in the back seat and enters the vehicle. We see William's face for the first time, an elderly man. He grabs the gun and reloads the ammunition, and then says they will take a long trip. He offers Eddie some candies and then starts to drive. A few minutes later, Eddie, looking at the saws and hammers in the bag, confronts William about what he plans to do with him, if he will torture him, just to then kill him. William says he has no plan, but just wants to give him a taste of hell. Here we discover that after suffering losses, William considers himself a vigilante who hunts criminals and causes them pain before giving them a cruel ending, and implies that Eddie will be yet another victim of his. Eddie, noticing a bracelet with the name Emma, begins to question William about why he is making it seem like a family trip. This enrages the man to the point of slamming the brakes, causing Eddie to hit his face a few times. Eddie continues questioning and asks how the old man lost his daughter. While William recounts that it was a criminal like Eddie who killed his daughter, Eddie attempts to activate the button of the device below the glove compartment. Knowing he will be killed, Eddie continues confronting what makes the old man mad, telling him that his daughter Emma would not like to know that all these years her father spent luring criminals into a trap and brutally killing them after torturing them. Even while injured, Eddie keeps challenging the old William, asserting that he does not understand that those living on the streets need to be smart. Just then, Eddie manages to activate the button and deactivate the car's system, causing the vehicle to lose control and collide with the hillside, and with the impact, William fires the pistol. The bullet travels through the car and barely misses Eddie's head, but in the end, hits the old man's shoulder. The car then flips over down the hillside until it stops at the bottom. The day is nearly breaking, and Eddie's cell phone receives a signal. Eddie regains consciousness, and seeing the unconscious William, he tries to free himself to get the gun. William wakes up and tries to grab the gun, but Eddie frees himself at the exact moment and manages to fight the man, and then subdue him by pointing the gun at him. Just before Eddie can shoot, a call from Sarah catches his attention. He answers to talk to his daughter, who says she was worried after hearing his message, but Eddie tells her that everything is fine now. She asks him to pick her up today, and Eddie promises he will. He hangs up the phone upon seeing the car on fire and asks William to open the doors, but the old man ends up dying there. With no other choice, he grabs the hammer and finishes breaking the armored window, and fortunately escapes the fire. After being free, he grabs the cell phone, but discovers the device has died. So he begins to climb the hillside and reaches the roadside, where he waits for a ride. Besides being relieved to have escaped the crazy vigilante, he is happy because he saved the winning ticket. A driver, noticing his situation, offers help and gives him a ride to the city. Eddie manages to get the money for his car repair, but seeing the mechanic's delay, he decides to borrow a bicycle and quickly heads to the school. His daughter is waiting outside the school, thinking that once again her father will forget her. When he arrives unexpectedly and excitedly runs to hug her. After all he has been through, Eddie learns that crime does not pay. His family must be his priority, and he should always seek the best, even if it means starting over from scratch.